Good afternoon to you. It is 3:06 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. So great to have you with us on a Friday. Coming up, Andy Biggs, the congressman, will join us at 3:30. Ian Pryor is here at 4 o'clock. We talk Loudoun County with him. Mark Mix talks unions with us at 4:30. 5 o'clock, Miranda Devine from the New York Post. And Luke Rosiak stops by at 5:30. We'll talk about local politicians engaged in pornography and, it appears, prostitution. More on that coming up. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Would be very grateful for your contributions today. I was just talking with Corey and Ganamore, our producer here, about an interview that Tucker Carlson did overnight, or at least it was released overnight, with an Argentinian candidate called Milei, who is Javier Milei. I can't recommend this interview highly enough. It is so good, and not for Tucker's role in it. He's great at interviewing. Milei is just such a fascinating guy. He is trying to fight back against the socialist hellhole that Argentina is right now, and it's been over a century of these socialist policies implemented, and you can even see it in the buildings in places like Buenos Aires, where things used to be built that were beautiful, and now you get these like squat, square, cement, ugly buildings. The other thing that's happened that's huge that Tucker's been covering this week is the devaluation of the currency in that country. Dramatic. Tucker walks into this black market currency exchange because the government steals too much money from you when you try to do it the official way. And he goes in there, he hands a $100 bill in, and they hand him Argentinian pesos stacked to the ceiling. I mean, just huge stacks of basically worthless cash he has to carry out in a bag from this, this black market currency exchange site. So just remarkable, and all a warning sign of what's happening in the United States. Milei says at one point during this interview that the left, the socialists, the Marxists, what they always do is they sell you this false expectation that we're going to be able to, improve the lives of everybody, and we have to, all of these, they misinterpret the things that people need as things that are rights, and the government has to give it to them. And rather than the invisible hand of the market, you get the claw of the government. And so everything goes downhill. Everything goes downhill. So they declare war on drugs. What happens? Drugs get worse. They declare a war on poverty. What happens? Poverty gets worse. They declare a war on income inequality. What happens? Income inequality gets worse to a T. They declare a war on prejudice, racism, sexism, all of those things. What happens? They actually introduce them. They make things worse. Bigotry, racism, sexism, the conditions of women get worse. In fact, here in the United States, what are they doing now? They're actually making it, they're laying the groundwork for, and it's already happening in some cases, men to take women's roles. Isn't that amazing? And that's all happening here in the United States. And there are warning signs throughout history and all over the world. So again, I can't recommend this highly enough. It's not like, other than being friends with Tucker, I don't have any incentive to tell you about this other than I thought it was fascinating. So I would check it out if I were you. It's the interview. You can hear Tucker in English, and then Milei is translated in Spanish. Really, really important stuff. Here in the United States, there's some interesting polling, too, that caught my attention this morning. And it probably caught your attention, too, if you track these polls at all. Donald Trump is now walloping Joe Biden in swing state polling. Swing state polling. Now, that's critical. That's the whole ballgame. The states that are close, we're talking tens of thousands of votes, not that many, in a country of over 300 million people, of difference between Biden and Trump's vote totals in these swing states, and they make all the difference in the world. And Trump is now walloping Biden in this poll that was just released by Reuters in the swing state. Former President Donald Trump appears to have an advantage against President Joe Biden in 2024 among key battleground states in the 2020 election, according to a poll just released this morning. The states that had the narrowest margin of victory for either candidate last cycle were Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, with Biden winning all of them but North Carolina. Across those key swing states, Trump is ahead of Biden 41 to 35%. That's across all of those swing states, with just 24% of voters remaining undecided. I mean, that is meaningful, 24%, a quarter of voters. This is according to this Reuters poll just released today. Among independent voters, the former president also held an advantage over Biden. Trump received 32% support among independents compared to Biden's 30%. In that category, 38% remain undecided. Uncertain voters, they favor Biden over Trump, 49 to 38%. But boy, a lot of good news here for Trump and for America, ultimately, that in the swing states, there's a lot of consternation about Biden. And this kind of goes back to what I've been talking about, which is this is sort of laying the groundwork for why the left is going to try and figure out a way to eject Joe before it gets much too late for them to impose another nominee on their party in the country. It seems ripe for that to happen now. We heard stories earlier this week that Biden aides are terrified at the prospect of Donald Trump winning in the next election, which of course makes them dangerous. That's how elections get rigged. That's how our systems get interfered with. That's how the media gets interfered with. That's how the FBI interferes with things and the CIA. We've seen it all before. But right now, terror on the left, perhaps because they don't think they have this in the bag. Reuters is describing all of this as a very worrisome result for Joe Biden, that Trump holds this advantage. They call it small in 7 states where the presidential election was closest, those swing states. 41 to 35%. Trump has the advantage. Among the reasons for this, voters are saying that Biden is much too old and too broken. Voters are expressing deep concern over Biden's age and his fitness for office, Reuters reports. 77% of respondents, that includes 65% of Democrats, say Biden is too old to be president. Too old. That's in line with other surveys we've seen on this question. We're well into the 70 percentage points. Think that Biden should not have another go. He's just too old, and it shows. While just 39% said that Biden was mentally sharp enough for the presidency. Let me pause here and make a point that I think we had a caller earlier this week make this point as well. It's not just Biden's age and senility. In fact, that's the smaller reason to unseat him. The bigger reason is the policies of the left are leading this country into hell. That's the explanation. Whether it's Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris, God forbid, any of them. It's their policies that are leading us down into hell. The reason people are poorer, it wouldn't matter if Joe Biden were president of the United States or Pete Buttigieg. The reason people are poorer is because of the government, because of its decision to print endless sums of money to pay for programs that don't help anybody but the rich donors who are close to the Democrats. The rest of us stuck with the bill and credit card bills and skyrocketing interest rates and more depressing communities and more drug problems and more violence. And it's freaking the country out. Hopefully it's enough. Hopefully it's enough where things don't get much worse and people are sufficiently freaked out in order to exercise their right to change who's in power and who's calling the shots. And to restore some of this and restore the power structure to the people, most importantly. Biden is too old and too broken. Just 39% say Biden is mentally sharp enough for the presidency. The economy, voters say, sucks. Voters are very worried about the state of the economy. And this is Reuters writing this, despite the White House's insistence that it remains in solid shape. 73% of respondents, 3/4 of the country, say that their economic situation is about the same or worse than before the COVID-19 pandemic. About the same or worse than they were. So are you better off than you were 4 years ago? The answer to that is a resounding no. No one is better off than they were 4 years ago. Very small percentage are. They work at the New York Times. Asked if they expect their economic situation to be better a year from now. Just 35% of Americans say yes. A third say, yeah, I expect to be in a better position. Meanwhile, Fox has a survey out this week that gives us similar perspectives on this. They say that Biden is losing support among his key demographics, the ones that help push him over the finish line. Now, what demos were that? Suburban women, single women are big. Married women, not so much. Married women like Trump. They like Republicans. Single, childless women, Democrats, by and large. Suburban women, are now dropping off from Biden. They're down 12 points compared to the fall of 2020. That was the presidential election. That's a 12-point drop among suburban women for Biden. That's a huge deal for them. And why, by the way, they are going to lean very heavily into abortion. The left is going to make abortion its rallying cry going into this election. They're convinced that that's the winning strategy. They look at the midterms and say that was the winning strategy. If we sing the praises of abortion from the highest mountaintops, we will convince women to support us. So expect a lot more of that. Women, broadly, down 11 points for Joe Biden. Black voters are down 10 points. 10 points. And voters under the age of 45, down 7 points, younger voters. Meanwhile, Hispanic voters continue to drop off from the left. Another 5 percentage points fading away from Joe Biden and the left. Fox says that support has actually moved to Trump's column. Compared to late October of 2020, that would be just before the election, his standing has now improved among suburban women, up 13 points. So let me go back to what Biden lost. He lost 12 points since that timeline. Trump has added 13, which means he's not only picking up the suburban women that Biden lost, he's also picking up the undecideds, the independents, the ones who weren't sure if they supported Trump or Biden. Women, 10 points in Trump's direction. That's just 1 point shy of the number that faded away from Biden. Black Americans, up 7 points for Trump. Hispanics, up 7 points for Trump. Remember I said Hispanics had dropped another 5 points with Biden. Now up another 7 with Trump. That means undecideds are getting off the fence and supporting Trump. Fascinating. Those under the age of 45, 6-point movement towards Trump. Well, this has to put some wind in the sails of the Trump campaign today, doesn't it? And the argument, this is essential in this argument on the right now, because what you're hearing is, Ron DeSantis and his team, the point that they're trying to make is like Donald Trump's unelectable. Like, okay, he can clear a primary, but he's not going to win a general election because he can't convince independents. He's too polarizing. Too many people hate him. Their minds are too made up. And especially in these swing states, he's going to lose. And, honestly, there's probably some shade of truth to all of this, right? But this is going to give all of these numbers are going to give Trump the electability argument today. Already have. And as far as Trump's position in the Republican primary, interesting data on this as well. In the 3 weeks since the first Republican debate, Donald Trump has widened his lead. So the decision for Trump not to go to the debate and to allow everybody else to fight on stage has paid off, according to this survey. Despite not participating in the August GOP debate, hosted by Fox, the Hill reports here, but drawing from Fox's survey, Trump's support has strengthened. His margin as the Republican frontrunner has increased. The survey found that 60% of Republican primary voters support Trump. That's up from 53% in Fox's survey that was conducted before the August debate. In other words, he's gotten another 7 points support from Republicans. It's funny, though, to read the media. Every time they talk about Trump's polling strength, whether it's in the general election against Biden, where he continues to beat Biden now, according to Real Clear Politics, by at least half a percentage point in all surveys on average. In all the coverage, they always say, Donald Trump is polling well despite all of the indictments against him. Have you seen this in the news coverage? It's a hilarious little phrase, and they keep on saying it despite the fact that he's been charged 6,000 times by all of these prosecutors, as if they don't understand, or they're just being flatly dishonest, or some combination of both, that the persecution of Trump is an inducement for support. You would think they would say despite, perhaps because of. Yeah, well, that's definitely the case. People are rallying to his defense because they see a system that is unfairly trying to sabotage our election. And of course, he has accrued some support because of that. All right, coming up, I've got a lot more for you, including yet another Democrat has decided not to signal whether they would even support Kamala Harris. It's hilarious how Democrats now fold themselves into pretzels when they talk about Kamala Harris because they don't want to say that she's a good vice president out loud.
Is Vice President Kamala Harris the best running mate for this president? He thinks so, and that's what matters.
I mean, I don't, whatever. Biden thinks so. So why are you hassling me? Biden thinks she's great. That's Nancy Pelosi this week, trying to spit out an answer through her dentures. But what we heard in that answer was, I don't like Kamala. I would never endorse her. Either that or Pelosi knows what's afoot. Something is going on behind the scenes that will not result in Kamala Harris appearing on that ticket, and she doesn't want to be on record saying she will. Strange, right? Interesting. Meanwhile, Jamie Raskin appeared on television yesterday, sans the do-rag, and he spoke to Jake Tapper and said this.
Do you think Vice President Kamala Harris is the best running mate for President Biden? And what do you make of Speaker Pelosi's answer there?
I mean, there didn't seem to be anything wrong with that answer. Obviously, President Biden, Vice President Harris, Speaker Pelosi, for that matter, all of us have been laboring under just a deluge of propaganda, disinformation, and criticism by the MAGA right.
What?
This is a rule or ruin.
The country is like so much crappier now, and he's attacking you for noticing.
Which takes the position that if they're not going to be able to control the direction of government, they are going to throw grease in the gears to try to shut everything down. And what we're all dealing with right now.
What does this have to do? What does this have to do with Kamala Harris's fitness for office?
September 30th deadline. Because the MAGA right wants to shut down the government.
You are doing what Speaker Pelosi did, which is not answering the question. Do you think Kamala Harris is the best running mate for President Biden?
Is it? Well, obviously, she gave the right answer. That's President Biden's choice, and I think she's an excellent running mate for President Biden. You know, I don't know what more needs to be said about that.
They keep denying this woman. They don't like her. Nobody wants to say, like, Kamala Harris is a big stinker. And they're not going to say, oh, yeah, she'd be the best pick. Everything is underhanded with these people. Everything. All right, coming up, Andy Biggs, the congressman, joins us. We're going to talk about the impeachment of the 46th president of the United States. It's all ahead. Good afternoon to you. It is 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, 4 o'clock, Ian Pryor joins us. We'll talk about this new report out of Loudoun County on the sexual assaults in the schools and the ensuing cover-up and the report that was just made public. Mark Mix will join us at 4:30. We'll talk about strikes in America as the auto workers are now on strike. And Miranda Devine is here at 5 o'clock from the New York Post, as the media is now under orders from the White House not to discuss impeachment. And then Luke Rosiak will join us at 5:30 from the Daily Wire. We'll get into one local candidate's proclivity for prostitution, according to a range of experts. We'll chat with him coming up, and we'll chat with you at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. You remember Karine Jean-Pierre was asked not too long ago whether Biden would pardon Hunter. It was asked again today, and here's what she had to say.
Second one, would the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear, and I said no.
Well, that's a lie. That's never going to never catch up with her. She'll get her cable news contract, and she'll never have to account for that. So that's an easy decision on her part. In the meantime, an easy decision for us is to go to our next guest. Congressman Andy Biggs joins us now. He represents Arizona's 5th Congressional District. He's also a member of the House Judiciary and House Oversight Committees. Congressman, good to have you with us, sir.
Great to be with you, Vince. Thanks for having me.
Hunter Biden, indictments come out yesterday from David Weiss on the gun charges. What do you make of that development?
Well, I mean, these are charges that could have been charged a long time ago, were never charged.
Yes.
I think they're a deflection, a distraction. We're now in a full-fledged impeachment inquiry. The stuff that keeps coming up about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and their relationship to this business of selling access to Joe Biden is overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And what we always heard was, there's no two-tiered system, and so now they're going to be able to say, yeah, see, he was indicted, he was charged, but you know what? He's not. Either they're throwing the Bidens off overboard as an institution, the Democrat institution, which I don't think is the case.
Yep.
Or this is just a distraction, and I think it's just a distraction.
Yeah, the on the impeachment front, it's interesting. We're hearing the media and the Democrats working in concert, of course, saying on a routine basis in the last 48 hours, there's no evidence, or some variation. There's no direct evidence of Joe Biden financially benefiting from his son's business activities. Now, the normally ineloquent Kevin McCarthy, even he is barreling through Associated Press reporters making claims like that. What is your elevator pitch here to somebody who might wonder what's the evidence against Biden?
My evidence is we've got direct witness testimony who testify that Joe Biden was getting a cut of this. We've got FBI documentation indicating that he received money from this, or that their payment was made. We have testimony from various witnesses saying that there was a quid pro quo. We have Joe Biden admitting effectively that there was a quid pro quo. We have Victor Shulkin talking about it. We have, and he was the prosecutor in Ukraine. We have massive amounts of suspicious activity reports. We have followed the bank records. To me, for people to say, "Oh, well, we don't have any direct evidence," and that's why I say, "What do you want? You want him sitting in front of a polygraph, confessing that he's a perpetrator, of bribery? What is it you want?"
They're not going to be convinced until they see him holding a big cartoon bag with a dollar sign on it. Like, there it is. There's the evidence.
Exactly.
But you're totally right. It's just a mountain of evidence that we're staring at. I saw the Washington Post has a defensive piece again today for Joe Biden. And in it, they say that the firing of Victor Shokin in Ukraine was U.S. policy, and that the only thing that Biden added to the conversation was that he audibled during the trip. He was the one who decided, I'm going to say I'm not going to give him the money unless they fire Shokin, but that firing Shokin was U.S. policy, which leads me to this question, Congressman. Why would Joe Biden be trying to fire a prosecutor in order to open an investigation into his son's company? Why would that be the arrangement? Why wouldn't Joe contact Hunter and be like, hey, get away from this company. It's a terrible company. It's going to be really bad for you if you're on this company. I gotta fire this guy to make sure that company gets investigated. Why wouldn't that be the arrangement?
Well, because everything about his statement, it was wrong. First of all, Victor Shulkin, an investigation was already open. Money was already frozen in England before that. Another thing is there was a phone call made from Dubai less than a week, 5 days before Biden was supposed to go to Ukraine, where Burisma's CEO is talking supposedly to Washington. That's what the cleaned up transcript was. The original sworn testimony the call was to Joe Biden go to. He needed help. He needed Victor Shulkin off. The testimony is clear that Victor Shulkin was prosecuting. The Burisma CEO said he basically said that Hunter Biden was dumb as a box of rocks, but we needed him on there because it gave us access to Joe Biden, and we needed help.
Congressman,
so none of that stuff is right.
Let me pause on that point that you just made, though. I want to make sure people understand this about the sworn testimony you're referring to. That was Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's business partner. And during his testimony to Congress, he first said that Hunter put the executives from Burisma on the phone with Joe Biden. And then Devin Archer's attorney got involved and said, whoa, wait a second. We don't want to say that. And then he changed it to got him on the phone with D.C. Is that right?
That's exactly right. So Devin says that, and I was in the room, and the attorney for Devin goes pale, just absolutely freaks out. So at the next recess, they after the next break, they walk back in and say, "Oh, we got to clarify this. Did you know that was Joe Biden? No, I didn't know. What was it? Well, the DC team. That's who it was. Well, who's the DC team? Who was the DC team? Well, it could be, these other guys that we had on our team.
Yes.
The bottom line is the call was made, the connection was made, the quid pro quo was delivered, and the Burisma CEO said he gave $5 million to Joe, $5 million to Hunter.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Are we going to get to see the bank records for the whole Biden family?
Probably not the whole Biden family. My understanding is some of them were juveniles at the time, maybe remain juveniles. But you certainly, I think, Brother Jim, I think we should expand this thing into looking at Brother Jim's records. You need to look into the Dr. Jill. Some of this money went to Hunter's ex-wife. This was going to a myriad of Biden friends and relatives. And by the way, Vince, when we're talking about this, people need to understand, we're talking about the Ukraine case. You and I aren't even talking about the expansion, which is Kazakhstan, Romania, Russia, China, several other Mideastern states that we've never even revealed to the public. Money's going into more than 20 different businesses that a lot of times they're just one-off, money's coming in and money's going out. There's no product changing hands. It is absolutely a classic laundering operation.
Yeah, absolutely. But the now that Kevin McCarthy has made this announcement, he says, when this is now officially an impeachment inquiry, and I realize that that's kicked off some debate over whether or not you needed a House vote or if it would just be an announcement. Republicans have been pointing to Nancy Pelosi's prior claims that, no, you don't even need a House vote. You can just announce it as Speaker of the House and you have an impeachment inquiry. Fine. But are there actual powers now that Congress has that it didn't have before, sir?
Well, a broader subpoena power. There's supposed to be a more vigorous response from the Capitol, the administration. They're supposed to be giving us stuff more quickly instead of holding it back. There should be more SWAC with contempt if they fail to do so. Mm-hmm. Part of it, though, is we're dealing with an administration. When they were going after Trump, within his administration, they were fairly cooperative. We're not seeing that kind of cooperation from the Biden administration, which is no surprise to anybody. But, yeah, I mean, you're supposed to have some more power. And I'll just say two things about the Democrats whining and crying now. Number one, there is no constitutional requirement that you have a vote before you go into an impeachment inquiry. Number two, we're just doing what they did. I mean, Nancy Pelosi showed us all the way. And so thank you, Nancy. And this is what happens when you think you're going to break tradition. Well, now you've created a new tradition.
There are a bunch of things that we're still waiting on in terms of public exposure. We may never get them. We were just discussing the bank records. I'm also reminded that the FD 1023, that was the FBI informant, well paid by the FBI over many years because he was considered credible, had relayed that there was a bribery scheme involved in getting Viktor Shokin fired, and it was on behalf of Zlochevsky, the head of Burisma. Right. Zlochevsky, apparently, according to that informant, had 17 recordings, 15 with Hunter and 2 with Joe, where they discussed the terms of this bribery scheme. Is there any chance that those recordings will ever be made public, or is Congress even capable of finding them?
Well, we suspect where they are. We don't know for sure where they are. We think we know where they are, but you have to understand that the custodian, we think the custodian of those recordings is in hiding, and there's a lot of speculation just whom he's hiding from. But I would suggest to you that some people think it's our own government, some people think it's from private entities that are trying to get to him, and some people think it's from the Ukrainian government.
So the person who has custody of the recordings is in hiding. I don't know. Is Zlochevsky still alive? Is he the one who has custody? He's still alive. We think he's in the Mediterranean somewhere hiding out. I mean, this is how crazy this is, Vince. I mean, you start talking about this is like some novel or movie where people are in hiding. With the goods on the current president who was the former vice president. Right. So just to connect the dots here, and I know you, I guess you were trying to conceal it a little bit, but is it Zlochevsky you're referring to who has custody of the recordings somewhere in hiding? Some believe that he's the guy that has the recording still. Okay. Yeah. And then the other piece here that I'm interested in is Tony Bobulinski. He seems to me to be one of the most important witnesses that Congress could possibly have. What is the I know you and I've asked this question of you before, but what is the status of his testimony, if any? Well, in my opinion, we have to get him back in. We need to get in Eric Schwerin, who is a former Hunter Biden business partner. And by the way,
like I said, we haven't even scratched the surface of all of these deals that Hunter Biden was putting together, that Joe Biden was reaching out on. There are other deals. I can give you one deal, the Indian bond deal. 9 people involved in that, 8 of them convicted and have gone to prison, including Devin Archer, who's I don't think he's reported yet, but he's going. The only person not charged in that, Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden. It's the only one that wasn't charged in that.
Curious.
In the Indian bond fraud. Yeah, curious.
Yeah, it reminds me of the fact that it was that Russian oligarch who didn't receive sanctions after she gave money to the Biden family as well. Odd. Yeah. Exactly.
The wife of the former mayor of Moscow. Yeah, and somehow $3.5 million found its way into the holdings of the Biden family.
One other piece here. I want to go back to Hunter Biden for a moment in these gun charges. James Comer and Donald Trump, the former president, both said yesterday that the gun charges conveniently are the one crime that doesn't implicate Joe Biden. And I kind of objected to that yesterday on the air, and I'll tell you why here. Because in this story, we know that while Joe Biden was already out of office, according to Politico in 2021, the Secret Service involved itself in this gun case and, in fact, went to the gun store, apparently, and tried to seize the records of Hunter Biden's gun purchase. It sounds to me like Joe Biden may very well be deeply involved in this gun case. Is there any effort that you're aware of to get to the bottom of that?
Yes. Now, I will give you the technicality here. The gun case in and of itself is Hunter's alone. The cover-up and the obstruction of justice charges that should come from Joe Biden and his proxies getting involved trying to quash that's a different set of charges that I think should come out. I think we got to get to the bottom of that too. I mean, the problem is there's so much here. It's like a bottomless pit of misconduct and criminal activity that went on here, that it's real tough to bring it all to the surface. And it's easy to conflate it. I mean, like you and I have been talking mostly Ukraine. We haven't even gotten into China.
Yes.
And any of that stuff. So there's so much there. That's why I'm hoping that we can accelerate our investigations here into the Biden family, crime family.
Yeah, big time. All right, Congressman Andy Biggs, we could go on forever. I've got a million questions, but I know you have things to do, and our time is short too. Congressman, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you too, Vince. Have a great one.
Madness in New York City today as a bunch of protesters, just New Yorkers. You can tell they're New Yorkers by their demeanors. They're going crazy over the immigration crisis. They're sick and tired of what's happening in New York. And so a bunch of Democrat lawmakers, they all assembled to pretend like they were dealing with this when they're doing nothing of the kind. And you have New Yorkers screaming at them for selling them out. Here's one.
I think that AOC, when she came out and other members of Congress and they had this press conference, what did you think about their comments?
They will never be allowed to walk down the streets again. Yes. They have destroyed our city, and New York, especially Queens, is woken up.
Let's pull away from this.
Okay, the end of that is Fox's Harris Faulkner, who, by the way, what that clip sounds like is Harris is like, oh, we can't stare at this. I don't know. Is he threatening her? Let's get away. Now, for her part, Harris went on Twitter a short while ago and said, I wasn't trying to take us away from any coverage particularly. We had other things we had to get to. That's her defense of the audio you just heard. But you have a New Yorker there expressing his immense outrage at AOC and company as they're standing around doing nothing for the people of New York except demanding more power unto themselves. Wait, I'm going to play some audio coming up on this subject where AOC, of course, demands more of your money, demands more amnesty for illegal immigration, demands more illegal immigrants take American workers' jobs. This is not a way you fix the border crisis. It's how you accelerate it. That's why her name's AOC, Agent of Chaos. 358.